Senator Joe McCarthy went after communists. You know what's happening in Congress right now? They're coming after conservative media. They are. This is not a joke. It should be, but it's actually happening. We're going to push back. I don't like this at all. You shouldn't like this because guess what? They're trying to deprive you of us, Newsmax, NOAN, and Fox News. We prefer that you watch us, but we want them to exist. And Democrats in Congress don't right now.
We should all be concerned about any source that helps spread disinformation, conspiracy theory, and lies. And that's why I sent a letter with Representative Eshoo asking cable, satellite, and streaming providers the questions to understand how disinformation spreads and the role of various companies in enabling its spread.
All right. Now, fortunately, this is Congressman Nobody. I mean, McInerney. I never heard of him. Wears a bow tie. But what he calls disinformation and lies, well, guess what? Some of that information is just information he disagrees with, or he might have a different opinion on. We'll go through this, but he mentioned the letter. Let's go through that. This letter is dangerous stuff. A couple of the points here. He sent these to cable companies. How many of your subscribers tuned in to Fox News, Newsmax, and OANN on UVerse, DirecTV, and AT&T TV for each of the 4 weeks preceding the November 3rd, 2020 elections and the January 6, 2021 attacks on the Capitol? Please specify the number of subscribers that tuned in to each channel. Number one, little Orwellian, huh? I mean, really, what business is it of theirs? But the government seeking this kind of information? It gets worse, though. Next point in this letter, please. What steps did you take prior to, on, and following the November 3rd, 2020 elections and the January 6, 2021 attacks to monitor, respond to, and reduce the spread of disinformation, including encouragement or incitement of violence by channels your company disseminates to millions of Americans? Please describe each step that you took and when it was taken. So many leaps here. They're telling companies what to do regarding content, privately generated content. Finally, this. Are you planning to continue carrying Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN on UVerse, DirecTV, and AT&T TV, both now and beyond any contract renewal date? If so, why? Why are you planning to continue carrying Newsmax? Scariest part of this letter, the most disturbing part, isn't really the content because they can't pull this stuff off. I think I know enough about the world and the way it works, and these are two fairly minor league members, but that they dare to do it like this. The most dangerous part is the letterhead, the Congress of the United States, Washington, D.C., that they're asking these kinds of questions and applying pressure on private companies to pull us off. And we did nothing that they're accusing us of. Nothing. They lied about the president. Now they're lying about us. Now they call it, interestingly, yes, they call it the big lie. Now, what is the big lie according to them? Anybody who raised questions about the legitimacy and the fairness of the November 3rd election. 69 million votes for Barack Obama, one of the most, look, whether you like him or not, he was a gifted politician. On the far right there, 74 million votes for Donald Trump. And look at all those counties he won. For Joe Biden, and we saw the lack of crowds, lack of enthusiasm, all that stuff, but somehow he got 81 million votes. They say raising questions about this and pursuing those questions that we were somehow part of the what? The big lie? Here's actually the big lie. They say that by raising those questions, we contributed to the violence that happened on January 6th. That's the lie, everybody. Maybe if those questions, maybe if they didn't try to stifle those questions or accuse everybody who raised those questions of being a traitor, maybe that would have helped. Fortunately, we had some heroes on that committee today. I really liked this member, McMorris Rodgers.
New approach, a lot of media would cease to exist. Should CNN still be carried after hosting Governor Cuomo? For months, media lauded him and legitimized his lethal response to COVID-19. He even won an Emmy for his use of TV to spread misinformation. How do we know it was misinformation? Because of a balance of networks that pursued investigative journalism.
McMorris Rogers. She was very, very good today. Also, we heard from Jonathan Turley, law professor from GW, and he's fantastic.
Free speech, like other constitutional values, requires a leap of faith. A faith not only in free speech, but in each other. Citizens are capable of educating and informing themselves. They do not need politicians or corporate filters to protect them. Roughly 70 years ago, Justice William Douglas warned that the restriction of free speech is the most dangerous of all subversions. It is the one un-American act that could easily defeat us all.
Professor Turley is great. Did you hear that? What we need, not politicians, we need faith in each other. Faith in each other, or we don't need corporate filters. Good stuff. He's right up there with Professor Dershowitz. All right, so they brought in some witnesses to back up the Democrats who want to shut down Newsmax and OAN and make our lives difficult. This is Soledad O'Brien, longtime journalist. All right, these folks are pretty full of themselves, pretty full of themselves. Here we go.
Often I have found that journalists who even understand that they're having someone on whose opinion that they believe is not accurate, inaccurate, misinformation, they'll bring them on in order to argue with them. I think personally it's a way to seem tougher, but it's also good TV, meaning it's dynamic, it sometimes involves arguing, it has a lot of drama to it. Well, I believe what ends up happening by elevating disinformation, whether it's being challenged well, challenged not at all, you give a platform to something that is not true.
Okay, number one, we don't argue on this show. Have you noticed? She's talking about TV that's 15 years ago. People don't really do that. The Crossfire show, they don't work anymore. Also, the whole part of something being true or not true, well, quite frankly, that's up to me. And I have been very clear with everybody that this is an opinion show, right? So is Congress really going to get involved in this? Or Soledad O'Brien, what's true, what's not true? Because Dr. Fauci, I mean, this is the gospel, right? Remember when he said masks don't work, and then all of a sudden, 2 masks? You need 2 masks for it to all work? Talk about disinformation. I don't know. They are giving us on the right such a hard time, but how about the left? Want to talk about disinformation that has led to violence? How about this little nugget that got repeated over and over again?
White America needs to come to terms with the fact that we live in a racist society and that there are bad cops. Police brutality is real. Disproportionate police brutality against people of color.
Years and decades of police brutality, and frankly, because of unacceptable and reprehensible practices.
We found that African Americans were disproportionately killed by officers, actually at a rate of 2.5 times greater than those who are white.
There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
Heard that a lot for years on American television, but particularly over the last year. And what did that help contribute to? Pretty much total mayhem for a couple of months. And you heard some of those folks speaking so categorically. Ali Velshi, we are a racist country. The violence disproportionately by police affects people of color. You saw him present those facts unambiguously. Well, let's look at somebody who really knows what they're talking about. This is Heather McDonald from the Manhattan Institute. She wrote this for the Wall Street Journal. They almost canceled her, but the story was very, very important. The police fatally shot 9 unarmed blacks and 19 unarmed whites in 2019, according to a Washington Post database, down from 38 and 32 respectively in 2015. It goes on. A police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. But that doesn't fit the narrative that the mainstream media, left-leaning media, want to tell, does it? Did they contribute to a summer of violence? The answer to me is pretty obvious. I wish they would change. I wish they would provide the news differently. I don't watch for the most part, but I don't think they should be canceled. I don't think they should be taken off the air. I mean, not by government, at least. If you guys want to tune out, great. I already have. You know, as far as cancellation, what should happen is a show should run its course, okay? This show is on its way up, okay? People are tuning in. There's some energy here, Newsmax in general. Let us die the old-fashioned way when people just get over the show. Who remembers The Love Boat? Huh? The Love Boat? You know, for a while, this was the biggest show in television. It was such a treat. I remember it on Saturday nights. It was just fun to watch. And they had this great cast, Captain Steubing. Anyway, it was hot, and then it was not. It just faded away. And these folks went on to other projects. Some of them. All right. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina. Sir, thank you very much for joining us in Newsmax. How are you?
Great. Glad to be with you, Greg. Thanks.
Senator, I don't know if you're aware of this, but right now, Newsmax, Fox News, OAN, we're under some fire from Democrats in the House of Representatives. They've reached out to cable providers. They've accused us of providing misinformation when we were only providing the facts. During the period before the election and after the election, before the inauguration. There's a real push to get conservative media kicked off of certain platforms. Are you aware of this? And I'd love to get your thoughts on the whole ordeal, if you are familiar.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I want you to know that you and your listeners are going nowhere. This is an effort by a couple of Democrats who are seeking publicity and destroying America as we know it at the same time. Can you imagine if I wrote a letter to somebody saying MSNBC and CNN needs to go because they spread disinformation? I wouldn't worry about it. It's going nowhere. You're in good shape. Your audience is growing, and you got a lot of people who have your back. I promise you that this is not going to happen. It's a couple of Democrats trying to be the liberal hero for 15 minutes, and it will pass.
Well, I'm so glad I asked you, Senator Graham, because someone of your stature and your experience expressing that, and the Democrats.
We got your back. We got your back.
We appreciate it very, very much. So, Senator, I'm going to now speak for some of our viewers. They have reached out to us. They like you a lot. Right now, they're not that crazy about Senator Mitch McConnell. We all saw the speech he made in the aftermath of the acquittal of the president, or leading up to the acquittal. And they don't think he should, quite frankly, have a leadership position. I know he's been there a long time. I know you probably get along with him. But what are your thoughts right now on Mitch McConnell and Senate leadership in the future?
Well, let's break it down. Number one, what he said Saturday after the acquittal, I don't agree with. I mean, that's his opinion. I don't think it's reflective of the Republican conference, but, he's an individual senator. He can have his say. I'd remind the viewers that Senator McConnell, working with President Trump, they did a lot. We got a bunch of judges on, 3 Supreme Court justices. We cut taxes without one Democratic vote. So Mitch and President Trump worked well together. January the 6th, I don't blame President Trump. I blame the people that defiled the Capitol, and I'm ready to move on. In 2022, we got a chance to pick up the House and the Senate. Just imagine if we had one more Republican senator who had won one of those two races in Georgia, we would be stopping this COVID package of $1.9 trillion that's got very little to do with COVID. So at the end of the day, I'm looking forward, not backward. I'm going to talk to Senator McConnell in the coming days. We need to work together. I spent the weekend with President Trump. He's more determined than ever to grow this party, not shrink it. He is the most dominant voice in the Republican Party, not Mitch McConnell, not Lindsey Graham. His ideas will stand the test of time. I'm looking forward to his speech at CPAC Sunday. I hope we can rally around President Trump as the most consequential Republican, the alternative to Joe Biden at this point in time. And I hope President Trump will come out with a policy positions that all of us can get around, can unite around, including Mitch McConnell. So that's my hope.
Well, I'm so glad you spent time with him, and we are looking forward to that speech. Joe Biden, you worked with him in the Senate for a long time, and when he was in the Senate, he had a reputation of a moderate, middle-class Joe, a guy who you could get along with. We've not seen that. We didn't see it really during the campaign. Now as president, your sense right now, is Joe Biden really in charge, Or did he make some sort of deal with the far left, as it seems to me, and he's just kind of along for the ride? What's your sense of what's happening right now?
The policy agenda coming out of the Biden administration is beyond radical. So President Trump came up with the idea to have asylum seekers wait in Mexico until their court date came up in the United States. The old policy was you come to the United States, you claim asylum, we'll process you, release you in the United States. Your hearing will be 4 years down the road because there's a million plus backlog in asylum cases. People would never show up. Trump stopped that by allowing Mexico, having Mexico to keep people in Mexico until their court date. Guess what? People stopped coming because they're not going to pay $20,000 or $30,000 to stay in Mexico. They want to come here. Well, Biden's about to undo the Remain in Mexico policy. He stopped construction of the wall where it has holes in it. The $1.9 trillion COVID package has got a $15 minimum wage increase, double the minimum wage. That will put small businesses out of business. Canceling the Keystone Pipeline is going to devastate our energy independence. So I like Joe Biden, but the agenda is AOC, Pelosi, Schumer, and Bernie Sanders. And I think we're going to win in 2022 because what they're doing on the border and by changing the Remain in Mexico policy, you're going to create a wave of illegal immigration like you had a couple of before Trump came in. I'll make a prediction that immigration will be the biggest issue in 2022, just like it was in 2016. If we can get our act together, we're going to take over the House and the Senate. So no, I don't think Joe Biden's in charge.
Senator, you kind of warned about this a while back. I think it was, quite frankly, your finest moment. I was quite frankly proud of the U.S. Senate and our institutions when you stuck up for then Judge Kavanaugh in a pretty dramatic way. Actually, I have that moment right here.
The most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist? No. I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it.
Again, sir, you know, you were just speaking for millions of Americans coast to coast. I'm sorry if that brings up unpleasant memories, but now that they've gotten the power,
it's okay.
Are you as concerned as you were back then?
Yes. So look what they've done. Working together, we passed 3 COVID relief bills because the country needs it. The PPP program to help small businesses with loans, money for vaccines, $4 trillion passed in a bipartisan manner. Now they're in charge. They have it all. A $1.9 trillion package that's got checks for people that make $250,000, money for schools that doesn't kick in to 2021, 2022, and goes all the way to 2028, a $15 an hour minimum wage increase. What's that got to do with COVID? Money for museums, a liberal wish list. So yeah, my worst fears are coming true. They've canceled the Keystone Pipeline. They're stopping construction of border wall that we need. They're changing policies at the border to encourage more illegal immigration. They're talking about getting back into the Iran deal. So everything I worried about is coming true, but we can stop it if we can get the House and the Senate back in 2022. And we need President Trump to help us. Without him, we cannot get there.
Senator Lindsey Graham, many, many thanks. Great to finally talk to you, Republican of South Carolina. To be continued, sir. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you. To be continued. Thanks.
And we'll be right back.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.